Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. Today I want to talk about Shimmer Reverbs. So this is another kind of video where I just want to dive into a specific effect that you might not have heard of, might not have used, and to explain it a little bit to show you what you can do with the effect. If there are any other effects or processes that you would like me to cover, let me know with leaving a comment. Maybe I can turn this into a little bit of a series because I like doing these things, showing you guys actual new techniques that you can use in your own productions. So just to get the general idea across, a shimmer reverb is a reverb that is pitched up by one or more octaves so that it delivers a very bright, very high-end, rich reverb. It is not something that you hear normally in terms of as a normal reverb, because it is what you're essentially doing is you're taking the reverb and actually using a pitch shifter to pitch it up. And there's actually some debate on the order of the chain. Do you put the reverb first or do you put the pitch shifter first? I am personally a fan of putting the pitch shifter first because I don't like the artifacts that you get from the actual pitch shifter. So processing those through reverb actually takes away a lot of those artifacts. Usually there's some high-end messiness, stuff like that. So for all intents and purposes, that's what a shimmer reverb is. Now let's look at a few examples of that. So here I have a very transient heavy drum loop. And the reason for that is with these transients you can really hear the reverb in the spaces in between. So here I have a normal reverb setup. It's a little bit wetter than I would normally use it, but that's obviously for the example. So let's have a listen. Normal reverb. Now if I go into one of these pitch shifters, you can see that I'm pitching it up one octave. The same is true for this one. And then finally the same is true for this one here, the pitch shift of plus 12. Now the reason why I have 3 pitch shifters here is because the pitch shifter that you use for your shimmer reverb actually makes a lot of difference in the final result. We can listen to what the pitch shifter is doing to the dry signal by just temporarily turning off your reverb and setting your chain to fully wet. And then you can play with the different pitch shifters, turning them off and on. So you can hear that there are artifacts here on the dry signal that depend on the different pitch shifter that you're using. And those then obviously get washed out with the reverb once the reverb comes in. So let's combine one of these pitch shifters with the reverb. You can hear that when I turn on the pitch shifter, the reverb becomes a lot brighter. And you mainly hear that in kind of the fundamentals of these drums, that they get pitched up. You can really hear the tone of that reverb, so still in the mid-range area, being pitched up. So as I said, this gives a little bit of an unnatural but a very bright sound. And where this can really help is with pad sounds. So here I have an example of a pad sound. And the shimmer I've loaded on here is the shimmer from Desk Glitch's new Catalyst preset pack. So that's a preset pack for Snapheap, and I believe also Faceband has some presets in there as well. The only difference that I made is that I put the pitch shifters before the reverb in this case, and obviously made some tweaks. I also set the mix to 100 so I can use these volume knobs to actually dial in the amount of volume that each of these channels has. But essentially you can see this as a triple parallel bus here with a dry version, a 1 octave pitch shift and a 2 octave pitch shift. Some other controls that you might want to mess with are these filter cutoffs here, and maybe there's some more with these filters down below here if you want to mess with those. But essentially this gives you a shimmer reverb both at 1 octave and 2 octaves. So this one is pitched up 1 octave and the other one is pitched up 2 octaves. Now without it, we have a fairly nice sounding analog pad here. But once I turn on the Snapheap, you can really hear the difference in terms of brightening that it does. So you can hear, as I said, this reverb almost sounds like an extra layer on top of it, like there is another pad just playing a higher octave. But it's just a reverb and a pitch shift, so it's not actually a new patch. Now you can imagine that if you're synthesizing pad sounds and you want that big full sound, that this is very useful. It basically gives you another layer without the CPU requirements of having to have another track in there and synthesizing the whole layer and processing the whole layer and everything. It's just a reverb and a pitch shifter. So I hope this video could bring a little bit of a spotlight on maybe a little bit of an underused effect and show you a few examples of how to actually use them. It's another shorter video, but I like to do these things still because these short tips are nice and consumable and easily watchable. If you have any suggestions for things that you want to see, things that you want me to explain, or if there's effects that you want me to highlight, something like that, then leave a comment down below. If you enjoyed the video, then also let me know by leaving a like. In that way I can gauge which videos you guys actually like watching. That gives me an idea of the topics that you guys like to cover as well, stuff like that. Finally, if you're new here and you want to see more of my stuff, then subscribe. And you can also turn on the bell notifications if you're interested in receiving messages whenever I upload something. But for now, that is going to be the video. I hope you enjoyed and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye bye.
How much we allow our past experiences to define us.